Alright, so I'm back. I was once again struck by the hex of whimsy, and I decided to run it back. I saw some comments from some recognizable folk. Some people reached out to me. I don't know why. It didn't even ever occur to me that like people from the Value Pack days would watch that video, or even if they did, that they would like mention anything about it to me. I'm gonna try and do a better job this time of keeping my eyes on the road. I instinctively, like when able, want to like look at the camera because it feels like disrespectful to just like not be looking at all. Oh, no blinker? Sick, dude. But I will be better this time about keeping my eyes on the road at all times. But yeah, I don't know why. I doubt anyone's noticed, but I unlisted almost every Value Pack podcast video. You can still find it. I left the first and the last episode of it up. I left the first and the last episode up, and that was on purpose. If you go into the description of those two videos, you'll find a playlist. I think it's an unlisted playlist, or it might be public. I don't know. I don't remember. But it has every single episode in there. But I unlisted all of those just because I felt like there's 100 something, I think, of them. And it's just really clogs up like stuff that I want to find, because I actually go back and watch shit that I've made on a fairly regular basis. So, but yeah, I didn't think that anyone from the Value Pack days would still get a notification about this channel, that YouTube would like throw it your way. I guess maybe if people still use the subscription page or whatever. I don't know. Maybe the YouTube algorithm was just like, hey, this dead channel uploaded a video. You want to go watch it? People were like, what the fuck? But since the people that happen across this video seem to majority, at least the ones who reached out to me and be Value Pack people, I thought, well, wouldn't it be fun to just reminisce, you know? So I do have a topic this time, kind of. It's still going to be just as aimless as before, but I'm gonna try to keep it around the concept of the Value Pack. I guess less reminiscing, I suppose. There might be some reminiscing. I really just wanted to talk about the Value Pack, like, as an experience. As I'm sure if you watch the Value Pack podcast, you probably know this. It just kind of started, ironically, on a whim. I literally reached out to Frosty. Me and Frosty had been in the same guild for like a year or two-ish, maybe. And we were constantly arguing in Discord. I mean, constantly arguing. And it never really, we were really good about like, yeah, we disagreed. Like, we would sometimes vehemently disagree with each other. But it never turned into like yelling often. I think maybe I did sometimes. Just because I'm so fucking loud. But we were usually kept it very civil. And at the end of the day, we knew that it wasn't a big deal. Like, we could still be friends even though we disagreed about how OP grabs are. You know what I mean? What the fuck? Oh my god. I wish I could show you guys what I'm looking at right now. This man's is in like a early 2000s like sedan type thing, but it's like jacked up. He's got like, I don't even know, he's got huge tires on it for some reason. He's taken off the back bumper, I think to make for room potentially for the tires under the car. Jesus Christ. So anyway, so I messaged Frosty. I was like, "Hey, you wanna start a podcast?" Or no, I don't think I messaged him. Wait, did I message him? Yeah, I think I did. I think I messaged him, and the first line I sent was, "Hey, would you want to start a podcast?" And I hit enter, and then I think I went to go type more, and then he instantly replied back, "Yes." Like before I could even like talk about like what I thought the format should be or like, you know, anything, he was just like, "Yeah, let's do it," which was very funny to me. I remember it made me laugh so hard. And then Mina gave us the name. Of course, he gave us the name. I think it was the Value Pack Weekly podcast. We nixed the weekly part because we thought that just felt a little too bloated. But it was like, dude, naming it after an item. Is it considered an item? I guess a purchasable item, or I don't know. Is a sub an item? I don't know. But naming it after like the thing in the game was like such a genius fucking idea. It like made so much sense. And we were tossing around names for probably like 30 minutes. That might be exaggerating a little bit. It felt like a while. We were tossing around names, just nothing was like, every name between us two and the other guys that were like helping us trying to come up with names, it was like nothing was working. And then it was like, oh my god, the Value Pack, this makes so much sense. So, and it was so funny, you know, at the time, we just thought it would be fun. And it's so crazy to think about what that turned into for Frosty. Even though he stopped streaming, and I still think he's not streaming. Last time I talked to him, he still wasn't streaming. Life stuff happens, but you know, it was so crazy to see how much he blew up and how he really like capitalized on it. And I think there was a part of me that was like, oh, I should try and do the same thing. But then also, I just didn't have the same love for the game that he did. And so it made it very difficult. Like, don't get me wrong, Black Desert Online is probably my second favorite game of all time. Unfortunately, behind League of Legends. Yes, I am an addict. And if you had asked me during the time which I was playing Black Desert Online, I would have said, no, it's my favorite game of all time. As much as I bitched about it. But I didn't love it as much as Frosty did, simply because the PvE side of it just never really was for me. I was never much of a PvEer. You know, you have PvE, you know, player versus environment. You have PvP, which is player versus player. And then you have PvX, which is you know, player versus both, essentially. It's a player who enjoys, you know, PvP and PvE. And Frosty was a PvXer, like, through and through. He loved PvP, but he also loved PvE. He could grind in circles for, I mean, hours upon hours. And I just didn't have that in me, man. I had it in me, like, back in the early days, like, before the podcast was a thing. I had it on me. But by the time I started doing the podcast, like, I really didn't have that dog in me anymore to just be like, yeah, I'm gonna go slam my face into this wall for countless hours in order to get, you know, a fucking 2% upgrade, 3% upgrade, whatever the fuck. Like, the math just wasn't mathing. It wasn't as enjoyable, you know, the novelty of it wore off. I wasn't like Frosty in that, you know, I was always playing the new classes and stuff. Every time I played a new class, I was like, yeah, it's fine. And then I found myself always drifting back to the same old. Like, so there was nothing really keeping me there. And then, you know, they came out with new regions, with new gear requirements, but I hadn't even spent enough time in the old regions to go grind the new regions. So I was like, well, I don't give a fuck about that then. And, so yeah, like the idea that I was like, oh, well, maybe I could just do, the same thing that Frosty's doing and try and, like, see if I can make a career out of it. But then, I immediately tabled that. I was like, yeah, it would be nice, but, like, there ain't no way, So then I just ended up, streaming on my own, more so just for funsies or whatever. But, then we brought Nayashe on, and it was so funny looking back on it. I think Nayashe was like, I don't think the three of us would have worked with any other person, in all honesty. Because this is gonna sound insulting, but Nayashe was the exact perfect person to be our third member, because he was insanely knowledgeable about huge gaps in me and Frosty's knowledge base, and yet the dude hardly ever paid attention to what was going on, it felt like, which led to like some of the funniest shit ever, like some of the funniest fucking things where we're just like yapping for like minutes on end. And then we're like, what do you think, Nayashe? He's like, I have not been paying attention. What are we talking about? It was just such a perfect, like, addition. You know what I mean? Not only from, like, the knowledge side of things where, neither me nor Frosty were super familiar with bladers and the plights of them. But then also just, how well his personality mixed with ours. It was just, I mean, I don't think it could have worked with any other person, in all honesty. It was just fucking, it was such a perfect I mean, it was like it was meant to be. It's crazy. Wild. It's wild how life does that. I can't even remember. I think, if I remember correctly, I was the one who brought it up to Frosty to add Nayashe as a third person. And I don't even remember, like, why I wanted to do that. I wish so desperately I could remember. But I think I was the one who approached Frosty and was like, hey, what would you think about adding Nayashe as a third member of the podcast? And I think Frosty, if I remember correctly, was like, yeah, I think that could work. Like, we can give it a try and see. And so I think we had him on as a guest a second time, or maybe, man, I can't remember. I think he was a little more hesitant, but he was like, I love Nayashe as a guest. I just don't know about having him on permanently. But then after like one or two shows, he was like, yeah, no, this totally works. Like, this works so well. But, man, so much good times. I've often thought about going through the podcast and, like, making a bit of a tribute video. I've thought about doing that, but it just seems like such a fucking undertaking at this point. And maybe I'm just making it out to be a bigger thing in my head than it would actually be. It would just kind of be very laborious, if I'm using that word correctly. It would just be a lot of labor. Because it's just like sifting through hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. I mean, over 100 episodes, I think. I think we were like closing in on 200, I want to say. Right? Weren't we? I think. Man, it's been so long since I looked. I think we were closing in on 200 whenever we called her quits. Or no. What am I saying? We were way over that, weren't we? Wait, how long did we do the podcast? We had to be way over that. Hold on. We had to be way over 200 because we did the podcast for what, like 3 years? Okay, hold on. Let me think about this. When did the podcast end? I'm really struggling here. Podcast ended in 22, the year my whole life fell apart. We would have started it, I think, just before COVID, like not too long before it, I want to say, maybe like a year before it. So yeah, maybe like maybe like late 2018, early 2019. One episode a week. We missed a lot of weeks, honestly. We missed a lot of weeks, especially towards the end. But one episode a week, roughly. No, we had to be way over that. How many weeks are there in a year? 52? So that would be 3 years, 52. No, okay. Yeah, that checks out then. Just under 200. Right? That makes sense. I think that maths. So it was probably over 3 years then. Because I think we were like at 170 something, I want to say. But maybe I'm off by that. Maybe I'm completely fucking wrong. Maybe this is all horrifically wrong. And Rizzo, you were on episode 339 whenever you guys called it quits. But I don't think so. I'm pretty sure we were closing on 200. Anyways. Yeah, the podcast was a great experience, honestly. It was so fun. Obviously, it wasn't super fun at the end, which is why we called it quits. But, like, for the vast majority, I would honestly say it went downhill very fast. It stopped being fun for me, like, right towards the very end. And started feeling more and more like, oh, fuck. I do the podcast again. But for, like, the vast majority of the podcast life, it was fun. And it was so, I think, in a lot of ways, I think it helped me grow up. Because I feel like those are such important years of my life, like age-wise. Because if, let's say it was 19, like late 18 to, late 22. So that's 4 years, right? 3 to 4 years. And I would have been, I would have been 22 to 26-ish, somewhere around there. Like, my whole early 20s was, like, dedicated to not only Black Desert Online, yikes, but also the podcast. And I think it really, in a lot of ways, helped me grow up because it helped me, like, perceive things differently. I mean, it's hard to say because my whole life changed in 22. Like, 22 was so rough for me, and it really made me look at things in a lot of different ways. But I think the podcast really helped me, in the early days of the podcast when I was so hard-headed and like, no, I know what's right. Like, I know how things are done. I know how things should be. Like, I can solve the world's problems if I needed to. That's pretty much how I was. I was like super into politics, and I was like all about debates and stuff. Of course, this was around the time that all that shit was popular too. Like in the social media landscape, it was all about debating people and all this shit, right? And I was just like, oh man, like I'm such an intellectual. I just know things better than other people. And then constantly butting heads against Frosty and Nyashi and other people too, because we would have guests on that I would be like, man, I never thought about it like that before. And I'm just like, damn, maybe I don't know everything. Actually, maybe I'm kind of fucking stupid. Actually, I feel like that's when I started like really realizing, man, I'm really kind of fucking dumb. Was over the course of the podcast, which I still maintain to this day. I still say that I am like one of the dumbest people I know. I think now I've tapered that off though. I'm swinging back up on the other side of the pendulum, I suppose. Or not really. I don't know. I've always said, what am I saying? I always say now, currently, I've not always said this. I used to think I was really smart. Then I thought I was really stupid. Now I've come back on the other side going, I'm really stupid, but I'm also smarter than most people. That's an indictment on how dumb the average person is, though. Not what would the correct word even be? Any achievement of mine. I am like pretty stupid, but I am smarter than the average person. That's bad. That's how I look at things nowadays. I guess that's like my my current black pill mindset, I suppose. I feel like I am less than average, or not average. How do I phrase this properly? I've had to explain this to people before, and it's always difficult for me to like verbalize. Okay, in the grand scheme of intelligence, you have people who know nothing and you have people that know everything. Exactly in the middle of that. I am way closer to the people who know nothing than the people who know everything. And yet I have like more, I think, knowledge and intelligence than the average person. Because most people are even closer to the people who know nothing than I am, which is really fucking bad. There is no way I should feel like I am smarter than your average person. Holy shit, dude. Man's just took that corner at 60. Jesus. So, but I don't know. I might be just schizo rambling right now, but that's how I currently feel. That's how I felt for years now. I am really stupid. I am also smarter than most people. That is a bad thing. That should not be the case, but it is. C'est la vie. Anyway, this was supposed to be about the podcast, not about my schizo fucking ramblings. But yeah, I have regrets about the podcast. I have a lot of regrets about the podcast, honestly. I really do. I regret that I didn't try harder to like actually make something out of it. I just put in like the bare minimum effort. And I feel like if I had approached Frosty, because Frosty was so busy doing his own thing, right? Frosty, and I'm not saying this to like dog on him or anything. Frosty did not put any thought into the podcast. I was always the one being like, well, what if we did like Patreon? Well, like, what if we made extra content? Well, what if we did this? What if we did that? And he was always just like, yeah, okay, sure. You know, he always agreed with what I said, or I don't know if I should say always, but almost always he agreed with my ideas. But he was never coming to me being like, well, what if we did this? What if we did that? And I don't blame him for that, because he was building his own thing and he needed to focus on himself, right? He was building his own thing, which is why it was very successful. And then I was doing the podcast, but I was like not putting nearly as much effort into the podcast as he was putting into his own stream, which is why the podcast was not as successful as Frosty's stream. And eventually it got to this point where, and I think this was a big part of why Frosty started feeling the way that I think he felt about the podcast, where it became a burden to him almost, because like, yes, the podcast was when he got most of his viewers, typically, unless there was like some event going on. But it's like he has to take time out of his stream, like, to do the podcast, and he's streaming constantly, and so now he's like, so much time out of his day is like being taken up by stream and podcast. And I think that it just became like a cost thing to him, where it was like, I don't really think that the podcast is super worth it anymore. I think he wasn't having as much fun with it anymore, which I wasn't either. I've never asked Nayashe, but I think if I asked Nayashe, he would probably say something similar. Like, yeah, you know, it was kind of whatever at the end. You know, it was really fun at the beginning, but, you know, then it just kind of like, you know, got tedious. You know, got tedious, I guess would be how I describe it. It just got tedious. And, you know, I talked to Frosty because Frosty was the one to bring up, you know, stepping away from the podcast. He actually didn't say, well, let's kill it. He said, let's step away. I want to step away from it. You know, I think I'm done with it. And I was basically like, well, there's no podcast without you, right? Like, at this point, if any one of us wants to step away permanently, like, maybe me and Frosty could keep doing it without Nayashe, maybe, since he wasn't one of the original members, you know what I mean? And that's not to say that me or Frosty are more important than Nayashe or anything like that. That is not what I am saying at all. It's just saying that, like, going back to what the show was before, you know, that's an option. But if I were to quit, or if Frosty were to quit, then I feel like the show isn't the show anymore. You know what I mean? That's just how I felt about it. So I was like, if you're stepping away, I think we're better off just calling it quits. You know, I wasn't having a blast anyways. Again, I don't know how Nayashe felt about it, but he didn't really put much of an argument up against the idea. He was just like, yeah, okay, let's call her quits. So that's basically how it all came apart, unfortunately. But, you know, all good things must come to an end. I do have regrets about the podcast. I don't regret doing the podcast, though. I don't regret it for a single second. It was such a blessing. I got to meet so many, you know, amazing people and make, you know, awesome memories. And so I don't regret it for a second. Not at all. I just have regrets around it. But the podcast itself is far from a regret. Where is my girlfriend? I don't think she's over yonder. I guess I will just hide over here and shoot her a text. But yeah, I don't know. I don't got anything else to say. So if you found this video, hello. I'm parked now. I can look at the camera, even though I'm still not doing it because I feel like I need to keep my eyes on the road, even though I'm in a parking lot. But yeah, I don't know. What'd you guys think about the value pack? What'd you think about it ending? I'm curious. Anyway, later.